Hello, gaming geeks. This month we're going to bring you two Star Wars fan theories, and this one being, what if Qui Gon Jinn never died at the hands of Darth Maul on Naboo?
What would be the path that Anakin would take? Towards the dark or towards the light side? Stay tuned.
Always kind of been an interesting topic that I've wondered about. I kind of wanted to do this one, but what if Qui Gon Jinn didn't die? What do you think with Anakin Skywalker, and where the hell would he go in what direction, like Rick asked? So I am your host, Matt,
I'm Rick.
and that'll be today's fan theory. So it's an interesting one. You can go so many different ways, like as a warzy. But Qui Gon was a major. To me, it seemed like a major influence on Anakin early onset. You know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, he, he had Anakin so enthralled, so enthused. He was talking about his laser sword, and he's like, you can't kill a Jedi, and Qui-Gon, oh, if only that were true, and he's just going on and on, and so yeah, I mean, it's always been interesting though, because like, what if they just mangled Darth Maul, Obi-Wan, and Qui-Gon on Naboo during the big final battle, and it makes you wonder, what if they just destroyed Darth Maul? And what would be the path that Anakin took ultimately? Because he lost Shmi when he was older. He lost Qui-Gon at a very young age, and he was Obi-Wan is like, the Council has granted permission for me to train you. You will be a Jedi. And it's just, but Obi-Wan really wasn't in. He just became a Jedi Knight upon having to train this shitty kid.
Yeah. And you have to look real closely at the differences between Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan.
Right.
Because Obi-Wan was very rule-oriented. He was very, he came up and he was very much the rules. Where Qui-Gon was more about feelings and emotions and tapping into yourself.
Right.
And so you have to understand that the training methods and how they taught them would be a lot different. So you probably have to weigh different Anakin Skywalker as a Jedi.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's very true. I mean, judging by their lightsaber colors, you had Obi-Wan who had a blue lightsaber, so he would have been a Guardian. You had Qui-Gon who had the green lightsaber, which was a Consular. The Consulars were a bit more passive. They used different approaches, whereas the Guardians were more of the physical attack style. Not saying that Liam Neeson's character Qui-Gon Jinn wasn't adept in lightsaber skills, but like I don't see him, once they were separated by those barriers with Obi-Wan not being able to help him. When it comes to the physicality, I don't think Qui-Gon had much of a chance. But let's say he did. Let's say he was able to best Darth Maul. Let's say Obi-Wan was never separated by those barriers that caused him to, watch his master die. And they dispatched Darth Maul. Well, what does Emperor Palpatine do then? Because his next one up was Count Dooku, if you remember.
Right.
But what does that mean because I believe Count Dooku was at one time a Jedi, and he was a Jedi Master to Qui-Gon Jinn.
Yeah. And then so you have to look at the timelines. I don't believe that Dooku was seduced by the dark side until after Qui-Gon had died. But that would be something to check out. I believe.
Yeah, I don't know. There's not a lot on Dooku at all during the Phantom Menace. He comes in during the Attack of the Clones.
Okay. So as far as how Qui-Gon would train Anakin, it's going to be a lot different. And then the other thing that I would wonder is, after they have the battle and they go back, he's going to try to convince them to let him train Anakin. And they had already refused that.
Right.
So what happens if they refuse him again?
Oh, and I didn't think of that approach, which is interesting. But now it also begs the question, then what made Obi-Wan so damn special to be granted permission to train him? Because Yoda flat out said it. He goes, Qui-Gon's, what does he say? His Qui-Gon's rebellious nature I sense in you, something like that. Or yeah, so he's like, he's already realizing he's Obi-Wan's kind of already taken the Qui-Gon approach about training him. I mean, he flat out says it. He goes, "I swore Master Qui-Gon I would train him," and and defiance. He goes, Qui-Gon's defiance I sense in you, and he's just going on and on. So he knows. So let me ask you this: what made Yoda finally break down and think, okay, then let's just let it happen? Why would he have broke down for Obi-Wan, who just got crowned Jedi Knight, versus Qui-Gon, a seasoned master?
Yeah, I mean, he kind of rose the white flag and after everything that had happened. But again, I wonder if they told Qui-Gon, I mean, first off, if they told Qui-Gon no, more than likely he's still going to train Anakin. He's probably just going to leave the order.
Yeah.
And then by doing that, Palpatine's not going to have access to Anakin at all, because Qui-Gon would probably be off training him someplace else.
Right.
And so you're going to lose that influence.
Well, and I mean, you had Qui-Gon flat out say, "There's nothing else I can train. Obi-Wan is ready for the trials," and then he goes, "You're right, I am ready for the trials," and he's just, I know, I can hear it in the Phantom Menace. That's why. But so it's like, so that was already going to be set in stone, and Yoda knew. I think at some point Yoda knew, and he realized, I'm not going to talk these guys out of it. But it just, I'm flabbergasted at the fact that he would just think that a newly crowned Jedi Knight who was still wet behind the ears. I mean, yeah, he beat Maul, but let's be honest, Obi-Wan was a legendary Jedi. So he beat Maul barely, but he beat him. Although even in canon, Darth Maul didn't die at that point. But yeah, it's an interesting story, because I don't know why he caved into Obi-Wan, who was less proven. Because Qui-Gon was more defiant than Obi-Wan, though.
Oh yeah. Oh, very, very much so.
Yeah. I mean, he says it. He flat out. There's a scene in there where he tells Qui-Gon that if you weren't so defiant, and not these exact words, but if you weren't so defiant, you would be on the council. And he's like, "That is all for today." He says, "You can go." He's basically telling Obi-Wan to shut the hell up. So, I don't know.
And the way Qui-Gon approaches things, he probably wouldn't be as against human relationships that Obi-Wan was. Mm-hmm. So as far as the whole Padme and his mother and things like that, especially if he was trained away from the Jedi, I'm wondering if Obi-Wan would allow him to go visit his mother, and maybe there wouldn't, her dying also comes later at time, and that was the other way that they were able to seduce Anakin to the dark side.
Right. Because the Tusken Raiders, it was the Tusken Raiders that captured Shmi, I believe, and she died upon Anakin releasing her in Attack of the Clones, and that's when he just went ballistically apeshit. You can even hear Qui-Gon's voice, almost like, even though he was already dead, Qui-Gon was the one that basically gave Obi-Wan Kenobi the ability to appear after death, like he does in Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. Qui-Gon, I think, was the first Jedi to do that. But anyway, you can hear him going, "Anakin, no!" You can hear him say that in Attack of the Clones, I believe. It's when Anakin is attacking all the Tusken Raiders and killing all the whole, slaughtering the whole village. You can hear Qui-Gon through the Force saying, "Anakin, no!" When you pay close attention, you can hear that.
Yeah. And that's a good point, because Qui-Gon already had that knowledge when he died.
Mm-hmm.
So how much of that knowledge would he be able to pass on to Anakin?
Right. And see, do you remember in A New Hope when Obi-Wan goes, "If you strike me down, I shall become more powerful than you can possibly imagine." And then old Obi-Wan raises up his lightsaber and lets Vader cut him. Well, you notice that there's only one Jedi that just completely vanished upon being struck down by a lightsaber in all the movies. I mean, that was Obi-Wan. And that's because of what Qui-Gon taught him, to live through the Force and become more powerful. Because Qui-Gon was the first one, because in Revenge of the Sith, they talk about that. He goes, Yoda basically tells Obi-Wan that what Qui-Gon is doing through the Force. And he's like, "Master Qui-Gon," and then so ultimately, Obi-Wan's able to do that and guide, to me, the biggest pansy Jedi of them all, Luke Skywalker. But I mean, you got to understand too, what would happen to Anakin? Would it be harder for him to be seduced by the dark side with Qui-Gon available to him?
Well, I think that because Obi-Wan would make him hold his emotion down
Mm-hmm.
and keep him out, whereas Qui-Gon would likely have him embrace his emotions, which is kind of a little darkish.
It is.
It might actually make Anakin a little tougher to it and not as easily manipulated.
Right. Being a little, it's almost like rattlesnake venom. In order to cure yourself, you almost need a small dose of it. Is that what you're saying, sort of? Yeah. I see. So you almost need a little bit of exposure to what it would be that tempt you, so you're not as tempted. Yeah, it's almost like it's anecdotal, right? Isn't that what that'd be the word for it? Yeah, that's actually a good point, man. That's a good point. It just makes you wonder, though, like, it's the impact overall from Qui-Gon's death that I think there would be a bigger impact than just on Anakin, though, don't you? If Qui-Gon had remained alive.
Yeah. I mean, first off, he wouldn't have that initial death
Mm-hmm.
to deal with because Qui-Gon died and he was close to Qui-Gon.
Mm-hmm.
So that hurt him. And then
Mm-hmm.
with his mother dying, that was the next death. And then that created this fear of death, which was they were able to latch on. And then so they were able to use Padme's pending death.
And they can use it. They did.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, and that's I mean, it's amazing how death surrounded Anakin. You know what I mean? But like, how much of that death would have surrounded Anakin? Because let me ask you this. When you watch The Phantom Menace and you see Shmi Skywalker, Anakin's mother, and Qui-Gon, they almost, without being bluntly in your face with it at all by any means, you almost sensed the connection between those two, didn't you? Like Shmi and Qui-Gon?
Yeah.
So would she be where she was to get captured by these sand people had Qui-Gon lived? You see what I'm saying? How much alteration could there be if he lived with Shmi?
I think the only way that could possibly change that is if Anakin and him somehow had contact with her and were like visiting and stuff, because that's kind of outside what was happening.
Mm-hmm.
Whether he's being raised by Obi-Wan or by Qui-Gon, the separation, that what's going to happen there is
right.
So
Sure, but I mean, like you said though, but what if Qui-Gon was more susceptible of allowing those emotional connections, and his mother could be closer to him instead of the separation? You see what I'm saying? Because Qui-Gon was already going to train Anakin, whether Yoda and Mace Windu approved of it or not, in Ki-Adi Mundi. There were the three main characters, Yoda, Mace Windu, and Ki-Adi Mundi, who were the ones that were really against Anakin being trained. And he goes, "How feel you?" "Cold, sir." And he's like, "Are you scared?" "No." You know, he's like, "No." And he's like, "What's that have to do with anything?" "Everything." You know? So he was already what's crazy is he was already learning from Yoda, even though Yoda was already quick to say no. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, I think that they wouldn't have had a choice. I think he was going to get trained. And I think, going back to what you asked about Yoda, I mean, I think they feared because his midichlorians was so high.
Yeah.
And I know Qui-Gon was the one that was totally convinced that he was
the chosen one.
The chosen.
Right. He felt it before they even did it. And then he's like, getting the midichlorian reading, which I'm going to be honest with you, I wasn't a big fan of the midichlorians. I'm not a big fan of them trying to explain the Force in greater detail. I didn't like it, but I accepted it. It is what it is. But I didn't like that. I mean, the Force was still a bit more of a mystery. That aside. But he's like, his midichlorians are off the chart. These are higher than Master Yoda's. And he's like, and Qui-Gon knew. Qui-Gon knew exactly that he had found the chosen one. And then when he's sitting there dying, he goes, "You must train, Anakin. He will bring balance to the Force. He is the chosen one."
So I think one thing we can underestimate is intelligence and Palpatine.
Oh,
okay?
Yeah.
So I mean, in the two scenarios I brought up, as far as whether Qui-Gon takes him away or whether he trains him with the blessing, I think that if he's allowed to train Anakin, I believe Palpatine will still have the ability to get his mitts on him. Mm-hmm. Because he was so secretive and they didn't know anything. And I believe that if Qui-Gon, if they told him no, he was going to say, I'm going to train him anyway. I'm going to take him
Right.
away. I'm leaving the Jedi Order.
And I think he would.
And then he would have went away, and that would have cut off the access that Palpatine had.
Mm-hmm.
And that probably would have been the best thing that could have happened to him.
Right. Right. Oh, that makes total sense. I don't know. It can swing so many different ways, because as devious and as manipulative as Palpatine was, I think that Qui-Gon posed a much bigger threat to Palpatine than any of them. You know what I mean? I mean, like, would he have been able to, I mean, I don't know how, like you said, we don't know how long Dark Tyrannus, or aka Count Dooku, was under the dark side influence. But what if Qui-Gon had not died? Would he have, even if he was dark, would he have, what would have happened with Dooku, and if Qui-Gon had lived,
Yeah. I mean, and Dooku, I guess, would have been aware of Anakin through Qui-Gon. So, yeah.
I mean, it just, I don't know. And now we can drop opinions if we want. I think the seduction of the dark side of the Force probably would have still taken Anakin. I just think it probably would have been over a longer period of time. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Had Qui-Gon lived. Because I think he still meets Padme on Tatooine. I mean, was it on Tatooine that they met? I think it was. Don't quote me on that. I don't remember. Or was it anyway, it's not important. The second he met Padme, he asked her, is she an angel? I hear all the Space Rangers talking about angels. So he right away, instantly. So Qui-Gon, I mean, that was before Qui-Gon died. So Padme was entering the picture no matter what. But where I'm going with that is, ultimately, how does it change the course of Padme if Qui-Gon lives? How does it? So ultimately, in my opinion, I think that the dark side still seduces him because of his strong emotional attachment to Padme. That was the number one thing. I mean, his mother fucked him up, don't get me wrong, but I mean, yeah, I think the seduction of the dark side, and I'm not 100% saying it would work versus the way it happened when Qui-Gon died and Obi-Wan lost him. I think that it's not as, you'd have to roll percentile on that one.
But Padme was in the Senate, and so he was seeing her as he grew up as a little boy there.
Yes.
Because the Jedis were there. Again, if Qui-Gon takes him away, no Padme access.
Right.
And so does he even fall in love with Padme?
True. True. It just depends on how deep his connection was as a kid.
Right.
I mean, yeah, that's a really good point.
I mean, he was a little rugrat. I mean, and she was Padme.
Right. She's into royalty, and he was a slave, the Watto. I mean, so yeah, that weird. I don't remember what that creature I don't know what the creature's called, but he's like, he's like, you'll get it, I think. Yeah.
Oh, I can't remember his name.
Yeah, his name's Watto.
Yeah.
And but yeah, it's, I don't know. Qui-Gon manipulated the dice roll. I wish we could do that in D&D, but we can't. But he manipulated the dice roll to land on what he needed it to land on, so he could, ultimately make the bet with the pod race and Anakin. And he tried to, but he's a Jedi, he can't force it. He tried to also, I think, get Shmi freed, but he couldn't.
And how strong is the influence of Qui-Gon? And I really want to stress Qui-Gon versus Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan was his brother. Okay, he looked at him as a brother. And where a lot of people have brothers, and whereas Qui-Gon was more of a father figure.
Yes.
Connection with his mother, and the way he raised him and things like that. I mean, I'm not sure it's a sure thing that he would have got through.
Right.
And who knows how that would have influenced Luke and Leia in the future.
So you think that had Qui-Gon lived, you think the seduction of the dark side would have at least taken a percentile roll?
Yeah, I mean, I think the percentile roll is where he's asking for permission to train him. And if they say yes, he ends up turning into the dark side. If they say no, he takes him away and
trains him on his own.
And he sticks with the light side.
Yeah, because like you said, Qui-Gon was gonna do it no matter what.
Um,
Well, that's a 20-minute wrap up on.
Very good.
Yeah. So that's our opinion. Long story short, what was your ultimate outcome? I'll just tell you mine again. I think it could have been 50-50. Well, I'm gonna say 60-40. 60% he still goes to the dark side because Anakin was pretty stubborn. But what are your thoughts?
I think he stays with the light side after they deny Qui-Gon training him, and Qui-Gon says, "Too bad, I'm training him. I resign from the Jedi Order," and takes him away.
All right. Well, you heard it from us. As just far as opinions go, if you want to let us know in the comment section there on YouTube what your thoughts are, what do you think would happen to Anakin if Qui-Gon lived? And as I am your host, Matt.
And I'm Rick.
And as far as me, I am outro.
And I am too.